When we stand by the international courts, we tell survivors of atrocities that their stories matter, that their suffering is seen, and that justice, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a privilege of the powerful.
To close the case for side opposition, I look to the chair of Access, Master in Public Policy, Axana Soltan.
Mr. President, thank you for giving me the incredible opportunity to speak here tonight in this historic chamber. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed members of the Oxford Union, distinguished guests, it is an extraordinary privilege to stand before you tonight to speak on a motion that at its very core challenges the very foundation of global justice, accountability, and the rule of law. Now, this motion before us tonight, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just about an institution. It's not just about bureaucracy, procedures, or flaws. At the heart of this debate is the lives of real people. People whose lives has been shattered by war crimes, by genocide, and by mass atrocities. People who, without the international courts, would be left with no justice, with no accountability, and worst of all, with no hope. It's about victims, like the girls in Afghanistan. Their voices silenced, and their future taken away from them. And yet they cling to the hope that justice will not forget them. It's about the child soldiers in Congo, ripped from their families, forced into war, and their childhood, their innocence taken. And yet they look to the international courts to reclaim their humanity. It's about a Yazidi woman held captive by ISIS and enslaved. And yet she comes to the international courts to speak, not just out of vengeance, but for an opportunity to be heard. When we stand by the international courts, we tell survivors of atrocities that their stories matter, that their suffering is seen, and that justice, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a privilege of the powerful, but the right of the powerless. And when we lose confidence in that very system, we lose confidence in our collective humanity. And yet the proposition here tonight, they ask you to throw this hope away, to lose confidence in international courts because it's imperfect. Well, not only is their rhetoric misguided and flawed, it's incredibly dangerous. And if we follow the proposition's logic, then we should also abandon democracy because corruption exists. We should also lose confidence in domestic courts because wrongful convictions happen. And we should simply walk away from justice because it's too difficult. No, ladies and gentlemen, we don't lose confidence and run away from challenges. We fix them, we reform them, we strengthen them, and we fight to make it better. And if not international courts, then what is the alternative solution? Impunity? Silence? No, thank you. To leave justice in the hands of nations and criminals, expecting them to... Oh.
Gentlemen, if you're recording, can we stop recording because we're not allowed to record in this channel? loud applause of himself, the person best benched. Yes, you're not allowed to record. Thank you.
We can talk about it later. There has been consent. And if not international courts, then what is the alternative solution? Impunity? Silence? To leave justice in the hands of nations and war criminals, expecting them to prosecute themselves? Well, history has clearly shown us that when justice is left to the nations, it fails. We saw this in Rwanda. We saw this in Yugoslavia. And we saw this in Sierra Leone, where the international tribunals gave the survivors the justice that their own governments denied them. Ladies and gentlemen, the successful conviction of Thomas Lubanga, the indictment of Omar al-Bashir for war crimes, and the ongoing case of Myanmar versus Gambia, these are all proofs that these courts do not just exist. They act. The proposition argues that justice is slow, but the Nuremberg trials did not happen overnight. But when it did, it set precedent that defined the laws of war for generations. So justice isn't always measured by speed. It is measured by impact. The proposition also argues that we should lose confidence in international courts because enforcement never happens. Enforcement does happen. Well, not every arrest warrant and case leads to detention. International courts do set legal precedents and act. The ICC's arrest warrant of Vladimir Putin has isolated one of the world's most powerful leaders from over 120 nations. This means that even a sitting head of a state of one of the world's most powerful countries in the world is facing accountability. That is enforcement. Slobodan Milosevic, the former president of Yugoslavia, he thought that he would never answer for his crimes, until he did. Charles Taylor believed that his rule would end in power, and certainly not in a prison cell. But it did. Thomas Lubanga, he stole childhoods, turning innocent boys into soldiers. He believed that he was very powerful and untouchable, until the ICC stepped in and proved him wrong. That is enforcement. Ladies and gentlemen, these are men who were once ruling with impunity, a president, a warlord, a political leader. They're behind bars. That is enforcement. I do recognize that the system needs some reform. I don't think anybody in this panel is denying that. But to say that we have lost confidence, this level of cynicism, it is dangerous. It is short-sighted. Just take a moment and pause, ladies and gentlemen. The words, "we lost confidence." What kind of message does that send to the world and to the very perpetrators of crime? That justice is optional, that accountability is negotiable, and that if you're powerful enough, then the world can look away. No, ladies and gentlemen, we do not walk away. We do not surrender to cynicism. We do not abandon justice. We stand up, we confront the flaws, we fix what is broken, and we believe in the power of justice. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, honorable members of the Oxford Union, I urge you, do not vote for impunity. Do not vote for silence. Vote for justice. Vote for the voiceless. And please, stand on the right side of history. Thank you very much.